everybody, my name is Raw Skye. This is JJ. This is the Raw Food Podcast, and today we're talking about being your body's companion while you heal. Hey, JJ.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you. I know you've been on a big adventure, so I'm glad you had a good time and you're back with us. And we are excited. I mean, I know you were here the whole time on the social media, but I
I don't
didn't.
know
I
what you're
wasn't on
saying.
with you, right?
I know what you're saying. I was doing other things.
Yes, you were loving life. I was really loving it. I felt like I was there with you.
Oh, I'm so glad. That's what I want for people. So that's good. So both JJ and I are raw vegans, high raw vegans. We saved our lives by eating a raw food diet, got rid of like pain, disease, suffering. And we do these podcasts and we want to share on different topics, really to inspire you to get out of that self-hate, that negativity, because it will bring us back to foods and practices that don't serve us. And JJ brought up the topic being your body's companion to heal. And I think I love this. You go into this, but I love this.
I love it. And I think we both, share a lot of the same philosophy. So it's easy for us to come up with topics we can talk about forever, right? But basically, I was just thinking the other day, I was putting a course together and I started thinking about what this big mindset shift I had was. And it was like when things used to happen to me, I thought something's wrong. My body's broken in some way, like my back hurts, or I'm having this particular allergy, let's say, or I'm gaining weight, and I finally started to understand after really studying holistic health and seeing how this diet worked for me. It was my body was just doing its thing. Basically, it's just trying to go along and keep us alive, and natural things happen with hormones, and everything going on is basically it trying to stay in its own homeostasis. But what I didn't realize is what I was putting in, the input, even my thoughts and my stress levels, how much sunlight I was getting, the food I was eating, not eating natural foods, like all of that played a part. And my body's just going along doing the same thing. It wasn't broken. It just was trying to speak to me in some way to tell me it needed a different fuel source.
Yeah, I love that. Now, for anyone listening, the one determinant factor in nursing homes, which determines how long a person lives, is not even their diet, it's how happy they are. And I feel happiest with raw foods in my body. That's what works for me. But that really shows that we need to find happiness in all levels. And imagine you're sitting with yourself all day, every day, 24 hours a day, and every decision comes from fear, from shame, from jealousy. You're literally destroying yourself before you even make the decision to exercise or meditate or put good foods in. And I really noticed when I healed myself how much, like you said, most of my life, if I had pain, I would go straight into fear. I've got to get to a doctor. I've got to grab my medication. I need to put a heat pack on. Everything came from fear. And when I found raw foods, I started to notice all my decisions came from love because I loved the food. The food loved me back. I felt great afterwards. Then more choices came from love, like sunlight. And I felt the love of the universe and nature. And that guided me to a point where I could get online and read and write again. I had a functional neurological disorder, or is it a neural? No, it's a functional neurological disorder, which displayed as a stroke, and I can only do
Mm.
things at a very basic level. And so when I started reading again, what really like made my brain explode was that a lot of people on their natural healing journey are like, you've got to push it, you've got to suffer, you've got to go through all of these words already at the moment are making me feel not good. But I
Yeah,
was like, I'm not going to do that. I have finally become besties. My lover, my best friend is me. And the more I do that,
exactly.
all the decisions come from love. And I love this topic because that's what we want for everybody.
Absolutely. I love that. And I think you're right. That realization for me came like when I realized that at certain points the raw food diet was helping me so much mentally. But then there were periods of time I went through when I got really deep into it that it was actually hurting me mentally in a sense, because I was so worried about, I even said this in one of my videos, was this banana at the right ripeness? Like I would stress out if it didn't have the
Wow.
brown spots. And then I was like, I would just be like, oh, I'm going to just not be full tonight because I'm trying not to eat nuts, or I don't want to eat, the avocados are hard. So like now later in my journey, and it's a little bit different, I know, between me and you, because of like certain things that we've healed differently. The raw food plays a, keeping it absolutely raw, but I found that maybe just a little bit of leniency on raw, like if the nuts aren't raw but I need to fill up, I can have them. And maybe steamed vegetables are okay for some. And it's
Mm.
like, I think we have to realize that as much good as we're trying to do for our body, the psychological part of being happy and enjoying, the food, and understanding that you're putting the max amount of healthy food as you can, as practically possible. I'm sure, like, traveling and things, maybe your first choice might have been to create your own food, but I think I even heard you mention this. If you had to buy something out at a restaurant, you're making the best choice possible. Like, and most of us are vegan, so I will not make a choice that's not vegan. But most of the time, you can find something that is a fruit, vegetable, nut, or seed, but it might not be that optimal, thing. Because when you get really into learning about organic, and there was just a period of time where I had to like really relax my mind and say, okay, do the best that you can.
Yeah, look, what I feel happens on this lifestyle is, and I speak about the angstroms, the measurements of electromagnetic energy, and Dr. Morse talks about there's this jump. You have fresh foods, only fresh foods, and you seem your consciousness jumps, your perception on reality jumps. It's almost like you jump out of who you were into a new person. And I think that frees a lot of us up. But what happens over time in this, let's say, new reality is we're constantly triggered into old ways. And I think with that, we start using our old eating disordered patterns. And if you've eaten a
Mhm.
standard American or a standard Australian diet, you have eating disordered patterns. As in, you're not actually eating for nutrition. You're eating because maybe sometimes you need the caffeine, or you need the sugar, or you need the fat, or you need the comfort. And what I
Mhm.
believe happens is over time is we first start this and we're like in abundance and we love it and everything's good. But then we get triggered into becoming and doing old patterns. And for me, it was very similar in like, I didn't eat nuts or seeds for 2 years because all nuts and seeds have heat, to clean
Mhm.
them. And that was a choice that helped me. But eventually I too got into this path where I'm not perfect if it's not grapes or watermelon. I'm only going to live off grapes and watermelon. I can't have greens. They're not fruit. And I believe that was off old patterns of mine, which in a raw food lifestyle end up burning out because you can't escape learning that you're self-harming if you sit in love. So,
Mhm.
in when you're doing a standard diet, you can drink, you can eat excess processed food and really numb yourself. But here it was getting very loud that this wasn't serving me, being so restrictive. And yes, when you travel, and a lot of people just going raw is a lot of people when they go out to restaurants choose to have some steamed vegetables with their salad. And if that suits you, the best thing you can do is enjoy it and don't beat yourself up. When you start beating yourself up, watch the choices you make become more detrimental over time without you even knowing, right?
Without you even knowing it. That's what I truly think. And you have to, watch where you almost go from here to here, and then you have to like catch that point. So I would say if you're watching and you're at that point right now, things will relax a little bit for you. And I mean, it might have been part of my journey that I had to go to both, extremes, but it was almost so easy in the beginning because I didn't know all these things. I just thought, I'm doing
Yeah.
great. I'm eating cashews, right? And then you get deeper and deeper into the lifestyle and you start watching and reading, and it's like, oh, that's not as good as a walnut if I'm going to eat nuts. And what? None of them are even raw. So then it's like, now I'm feeling bad eating that. So I would just say, do the best that you can. It's all about, like, treating yourself with kindness. So if you're negative self-talking yourself, that's not being kind and working along with your body, because our brain is one of the biggest parts that controls everything, and you have to love what you're doing, and you have to feel good about it. Like, even though we're eating for nutrition, that's why we have things that we enjoy. Everybody has their own favorites, and your recipes, everyone enjoys, because they give us that sense of comfort. But also, how is the best comfort I can find is when I find something healthy and I love it. So the more things we can put together like that make us feel also mentally comforted and good, but aren't punishing ourselves. Because most of the time in life, my body was broken. I didn't know it was caused by the food. And then when I celebrated that I did feel good, I was putting punishment in. Here's some alcohol and some cake. And, it's
Yeah.
like we end up punishing ourselves instead of working with our body. We think we might be rewarding our brain at that moment, but what are you doing to yourself? So finding that balance and not being too hard on yourself, and like learning about the other parts of health, I think have really helped me this year. And the cat too,
Hello.
apparently.
One of the
Hi.
greatest, I think, compassions I ever gave to myself was, I remember being raw for not very long, but you're eating raw food during the day. I was outside most of the day. Had gone for a walk. At night, I'd had a fresh shower with just coconut oil on, and jumped in my comfy pajamas and jumped into bed. And how good I felt in my own body at that time.
Mhm.
Nothing on this planet had ever felt that good in my whole entire life. And that is just fresh foods, sunlight, self-love and
Mhm.
self-care. And I was like, and I did an interview with Gillian Berry, and she's also said, like, when she started eating raw food, she worked out that's how she was supposed to feel. And she'd never felt so good. And I think it's the same thing, right? Is all of a sudden, this is right. It isn't like
Mhm.
this hyper high that some sort of stimulation's given you. It's not, I think some of us can feel high from, like, even like dopamine from watching things on television. It's not like in your brain made up. This is real. This is
Yeah.
present. And I'd worked out the only way to do this was to become besties or my companion. Like, I was my job. And even I know, like, I actually was really happy that there was nobody in my bed, as in, like, I had never got married, because I'm just starting
Mhm.
to heal, right? Is I could just fall in love with me. And that's the premise I live by, is my whole job every day is what makes me feel good. And that's changed over time, from the basics of fresh food, nature, and exercise, to now doing podcasts, sharing my recipes, being a health coach. I am an auntie, I'm a daughter, all these things I could bring back into my life because I became my companion, my bestie.
Exactly. I think that's exactly it. Like when I started looking at things like I want to help my body do what it needs to do to keep me alive and to keep me happy, it became so much easier than trying to be reactive to it all the time, which is how we live most of our life, or at least a lot of us. Like me, I didn't find this for 42 years of my life, so it was always like, oh, here goes this again. My back is always hurting, instead of looking a little bit level deeper and saying, what is it trying to tell me? Maybe, like, what is
Yeah.
really going on? What is that root cause? And it's like, so many people don't really ever make that connection, and I just feel so lucky and blessed. And I think living in gratitude about it too, it helps to keep yourself in that positive state, and understanding that, thanking your body for working with you, and you working with it. You work almost as, like you said in the title, companions. I love that. We're working together to do this thing, to do life together, instead of like, what are you doing to me now, type of thing. How a lot of
Yeah.
people want to complain about their bodies all the time. And when I find I'm ready to complain about something, it's something usually that I've done. I skipped my workout yesterday, so I do feel a little tighter in the knees today, right? I didn't stretch out like I normally do. So it's like I started taking that responsibility and apologizing, right? Instead of being mad at my knees, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't do our normal workout. I got you today, right? Like, it's so interesting when you start self-positive talking.
Yeah, look, I also think there's times where I've really backed off from movement or exercise. Just things have come up or I haven't felt as great. But I always now, instead of going, you're bad, Skye, I'm like, what did I learn from this? Why did my body want periods of rest? Are periods of more rest bad? I don't necessarily think they are. My body
Mm-hmm.
just goes through things. I really try to constantly reframe into positivity. And I also spoke in some of my lives about how I, for my own personal mental health, had to start seeing everything in the world as having positive benefits. I was
Mm-hmm.
getting to this stage of this isolation box of, and it was in my stage of just like grapes and watermelon, and I'm not having this and not having that, and having things like hair loss and being more on edge as well. I really had to look around and see, was this serving me, and see where love is in this world, because this is God's world. God is in me. God is expressed through me, and there's a purpose for everything. Everything has a purpose. I just had stopped, I think, getting deep into raw food, seeing everything's purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And even I spoke about alcohol. Alcohol is, I don't like to use the word bad. It has a purpose. If I cut my foot down the beach, and someone has a bottle of vodka nearby, it's great antiseptic. If I've cut my foot on an oyster, there's a purpose for it. I haven't never had any in the past 4 years, but I was on a plane flight with severe pain. Hindsight, having a small amount of some sort of alcohol may have made my trip a tiny bit more comfortable. It's something I'm open to in the future if I am in a lot of pain and suffering. I mean, if I end up in a lot of pain, I take pain medication. It served me when I had a broken toe. Do I think it's good to take every day? No, but when your toe's bent out of place, I was very grateful for a few days that it helped me rest, because I was excessive. I go into obsessive mode. I don't feel pain like normal people. Usually what I do is consistently exercise to it's like hurting me even more, or I start to think of addictive tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
It's like everything has a purpose. And even like the foods I used to eat, I have learned great lessons eating like constant amounts of those foods, and I've come through the other side. The more I could see love in everything, the better I feel about myself, the nicer I am to people, the more I sit in love. So that was something I had to redo. And it's back to that stage where we box ourselves in, I think, because being raw foodists is so unique. It's so different. And we then protect ourselves. But I had to learn that, to live on this planet where I choose to live, and my soul obviously came to live here, so it loves something about it, is everything out there is teaching people lessons. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
one to judge what is bad, what is not good. I'm just here to pick the best I can for me every day.
I love that. It's like giving compassion not only to yourself. When you do that, it almost gives you that compassion, to be compassionate to others and
It
to step
does.
outside of yourself a little bit. Because also, like you said, a lot of us come from these addictive type. I think I'm. Oh, there we go. I think my sunlight is setting
It
behind
is.
me.
You like a
Uh,
sunbeam.
and I was like, thinking about it, when we start to get this like high almost that we have, like we start to feel really good, we want more and more and more. And it comes back to that, like getting deeper and deeper into the lifestyle. And then there's like a release point where it's like, okay, I have to balance this. And I love that when you're feeling so good, though, you do protect it. That's why I stay eating the way that makes me feel good. When you get to that point, instead of, I have to do it to check off this box, right? Like, even though I do have a daily health checklist, I'm not meaning it like that, but like making sure I'm doing the things that make me feel good is what I'm checking the boxes on, not being so overly like I have to eat only one thing or I have to do it this way. It's like, okay, if my body feels like, having fruit, I'm going to have fruit, but I'm not going to force it if I don't want lunch that day. Like, just really starting to be a friend to your body and not look at it as like you're the sergeant, like, it's like listening to your body instead of the other way around.
Yeah, 100%. And I wanted to jump across to some of these comments here. So Rocky, hey, has
Hey,
said,
Rocky.
food is a pleasure for me, and some say you should eat to live, not live to eat. But I don't have a ton of vices. I haven't found a comfort raw food, although I do love raw foods. And then it's like, what's your raw comfort food? Now, for me, it's it's very different than the comfort food. There's two ways of looking at this. So when I first went raw, I knew I needed to find a way to do it that made me consistently feel good. Because if you ate cashews all day, I mean, people say they're not raw, but they are on the raw food lifestyle. It's not going to serve you that well. Or just powdered cacao and bananas all day. I don't know how good you're going to feel. But like, there's two parts to this. So I love the salad, which I healed myself with. I posted so many times on my site. It's also going to be on Jillian's channel soon. It's so easy to make. Most of it is all fresh, but because there's so many ingredients in it, you feel like stimulated and comfortable. Most of it's fresh. There's like just a little bit of turmeric powder and paprika. The rest is like lemon juice, chili, lime, mango, garlic, tomato, basil, like everything in a bowl, right? But that makes me feel good making it, eating it, and afterwards I feel incredible.
We're like salad sisters.
Yeah, we are. The salad is like that soul sister, salad sister. But then there's another side to that where I've gone through times, and it usually happens more in winter, and that's usually because I'm not getting. We had a really rough winter in Sydney in that it usually rained. You get on average, I think, 4 hours of rain per day for the whole of winter. Right? We got 7.5 hours per day. It really was dark. And I think I just was going through something. I feel like this last winter, I was just going through, and things like having more cacao or having more, like I have these 4-ingredient chocolate donut and I love like 2 or 3 of them, right, as a dessert. But if I skip a meal and eat that, I don't feel as optimal as if I have fresh food. For me, fresh always makes me feel best. But it still, for me, isn't sending me backwards. And it's still life lessons. You've got to stop looking at like, oh my God, I ate too many cashews, I ate too much nutritional yeast, whatever it is. It's like, well, it's still raw. You didn't go backwards. Raw is ambiguous here. Anything that comes in a packet is in that, like, it's the rawest version of the food. You have to learn what works for you. So when it comes to comfort meals, I truly, like, salad sisters out there, I love like a predominantly fresh, everything you can put in it, which is more savory and bitter with greens and salty with a bit of salt, not a lot on top, is like my cup of tea. But I do, like all of us, I love my chocolate donuts. I actually feel really good. The thing also Jillian said about them is afterwards, because you feel so satiated, you don't tend to eat a lot of that, for example. But I know all of us out there have probably got stuck into a tray of some dehydrated food at some point. What I like to tell myself is you don't feel as optimal, but you haven't gone back to cooked food. And that's huge for me, because I feel like if for me, that was just me getting up or me not getting up. So that's the comfort food for me. What about you, JJ? Where do you sit with your comfort foods?
Well, I agree about those. As soon as the person commented over here, they didn't have a raw comfort food, immediately your donuts came up, even though I haven't had them. But I'm like, they look like the perfect comfort food and healthy. So I love that. So I think for me, just because the way that I started this, I'm similar to you. My salad is a whole event. It's not even just, most people would be like, I've got to go make dinner, and I'm like, I get my little phone set up, get the YouTube video. If you're live, I'll go on there and watch you sometimes, or grow your business type thing, or whatever I'm into at the time. And I'm setting it up for a while. The first couple of years, it was always watching health benefits of food and transformational stories. And I just like set it up. I get all the ingredients out, and it's a lot of ingredients. So I've kind of condensed it a little bit over the years, but it started to get really big. But I really enjoy that salad, feels comforting, but the dressings I use are different ways of comforting. So like I might have, like I had this one before, and I know it might not be completely raw, but it had like sauerkraut and olives, and that gave me a little bit of mustard, and that gave me like some type of feeling of something that I must have ate like during my previous life, I guess, and that gave me a comfort. I got into that. I used to just have 2 big bowls, like when I started, of store-bought dressing, which after a while, like that became, oh my goodness, like now you are really like, you were eating store-bought dressing, right? Like, but it's it's okay. Like that's how I started before I knew. I was like, that's healthier than anything I've ever ate. So I had like a sweet and a savory one, you know, and like I think sometimes if we go into cooked food, like if you are keeping it high raw, I definitely think beans and potatoes are kind of comfort foods that might be like, I think I heard someone recently call them yellow light foods or something like that, you know, like if you absolutely can't stay completely raw. But avocados, for being raw, that's a big comfort food for me. And I think sometimes cashews and walnuts too. And you know, it's, I think fruit has become a comfort food for me too, like bananas someone was mentioning, because that just, I don't know what it is about them. Maybe I think about being a kid and having a banana and things like that. My grandmother used to give them to me, but there's a lot of them that have come up, and then just like different phases of this lifestyle I've went through give me like nostalgia eating a certain type of fruit, you know? So I think there's just so many different ones depending on where my mood is. Like you said, if it's winter time, I start to get a really savory type of, you know, craving, you know, like with something almost like, I can't even like describe, remember what I had last winter. I think I tried to do like a Thanksgiving type salad or something, but
I love that. I love that. Also, I think people have to remember that if your body has needs and it can get those needs met from beans and potatoes and it can assimilate them without being too distressed, there's no reason that you should not do that. We're talking about when people just feel so terrible from a food that at any time you have it, it's not serving them. But that's why, like, when you think about eating the denser raw foods, like whether that's dehydrated nuts or seeds, avocado, even some people classify bananas as denser. I don't necessarily think they are. But you've got to think that your body gets a lot of nutritional information from a smaller surface area with less hydration or fluid in it. If your body can do that without feeling unwell, don't punish yourself. You know, we're talking about very few steps away from like the very fresh, like a mango or a fresh, I still think bananas are optimal. I think dates are great for people as well. But there's times where dates are not good for me. There's times where when I
dates,
was first
yes, I
feeling
love them.
dates were amazing. Also, if you're going raw and how you stay raw when you first start is because you use store-bought dressings, I would look what's in them because they can make you feel bad if they've got like preservatives in them. But very basic, natural, whole foods type dressing, you're doing amazing. The more you tell yourself, hey, bestie, I'm doing amazing. Hey, bestie, I love you. Hey, let's do this together. Let's, you know, I learned from this. I'm already feeling good just saying those things. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we feel good from saying good. And if you're struggling, take your butt and your food outdoors. Take your shoes off. It is a lot easier for me to feel in love with raw foods and nature. It's very hard for me to not be in love if I have those in my life. Get a pod if you can't, if it's winter, put on a podcast that makes you feel good. You want to consistently be told you're feeling good, because I always bring up Dr. Emoto, you know, and that experiment where negative words to the rice in the water create disease-like structures under a microscope. Saying love to the rice and water creates like beautiful crystals, and the rice doesn't mold as fast. We want to be the unmolding rice, guys. We don't want to be the moldy, diseased rice. We want to speak nice, love ourselves wherever you're at. I just feel you can take more steps forward in love than you can if you start beating yourself up, because you feel so bad from beating yourself up. You're going to need a drink or a coffee or processed food to like make you think you feel better for a moment.
And I think that's where the bouncing happens. And I think we talked about this before. Like sometimes your body is going to feel bad. I was saying, I forgot to say tacos. That's another one of my comfort foods. I'm just on this taco salad. I'll put a little like cumin type seasoning on it. That's another one of the dressing things. But anyway, I just was rambling, getting hungry. But before that, what was I just talking about? Oh my goodness, I forgot that quick. Oh, yes. Don't, about beating yourself up or trying to go too deep too quick and think, I'm not perfect, so I'm going all the way back. And I think there's this bouncing that happens when we go too hard and punishing ourselves raw, trying to maybe go from eating the standard American diet to eating only oranges or something like that. And your body's going to feel bad. Your cells aren't even probably ready for something like that. Or it actually ends up hindering people. I feel like going back and forth. Some people it works very well for. So everybody is completely different. But I think that's why it's important to really sit back and navigate this when you're about to start with self love, like you said, because it's like, what can I handle right now? How can I make this, fit this into my life? And for me, it was a salad. And, that was the starting point because it wasn't so far different from what, I used to eat. I've ate salads before, so I was able to get my head around it. And then you can, continue to add on or maybe even try different recipes. And that's what I love about what you do and what you share, because some of these comfort foods that we all inevitably have in us, we all have grown up, most of us anyway, weren't vegan when we started. So having those foods that we enjoy, but also don't make us feel bad physically, or we can feel good mentally knowing we're putting good stuff in our body. We're not going against it, but we're also, feeding our mind with some type of comforting feelings with the like different what was that one you made the other day? It looked so good. Or maybe it wasn't the other day before you left. It
The
was
cheesy broccoli.
chicken. It was some
The
type of kung pao, maybe. It was a certain dish. You don't
Are you
make a
talking?
curry.
Oh, I don't think I've done anything like that. I do bring up raw chef Yin's what is it called, cashew chicken recipe
I
a
think
lot.
it was cashew chicken. You know me
I
and the
show the
cashews.
photo in some of the lives to just show how real it can look. Okay, so I love this. So that's where the confusion of reward or love can raise its head. This I worked out very early on in my raw journey, how you know if you are like if it is a reward or whether it is a full act of self-love. And that is, I feel good thinking about it. I feel good making it. I feel good eating it. But key is to feel good afterwards and the next day. If any part of that has negative connotation for me, I am using it purely for dopamine. For one part of that has a bit of dopamine that it's giving me, and I'm willing to sacrifice part of myself for a higher moment. That's
Mhm.
for me what always comes down to. So that salad I talk about often, it's all fresh, tiny bit of turmeric and smoked paprika in it. And I feel good thinking about it. I feel good making it. I feel good eating it. I feel good afterwards. There is no part of that which inflicts pain on myself. If I was to make like a tray of dehydrated food and that's all I ate all day, I might be excited to make it. I might be excited eating it. But then even halfway through, my thoughts change because I know I'm about to be very dry. And
Yeah.
that is that key where I was willing to sacrifice part of myself for a moment of pleasure. But another thing I want to say about dehydrated food is what I like about it is it's like a caveat. I don't have it that often. I actually prefer to semi-dehydrate food, like as in like just mushrooms for an hour, veg. And this is usually only in winter. Summer, I barely use my dehydrator. Or make like little bread loaves, cut it up and have like a
Oh,
very,
that's nice.
very fresh salad. But it's that caveat where we can stay raw. I feel like I've spoken about this before, and the neuropsychiatrist Andrew Huberman talks about how many people find it better to exclude one thing because you don't light up neural pathways in the brain and get tempted. So it's like you might want something denser and you go in and have pumpkin. And for most people, that sets off, well, pumpkin, I'm now going to put a vegan cheese with that. I'm going to grab my vegan bread. It goes downhill very fast because you open up those pathways in the brain, which you don't use anymore. So when you
Right.
stay eating just drier food, make sure you have hydration with it. Fresh food, you don't get tempted as much. And I think that is what's brilliant about dehydrated foods.
And it's more of a texture type thing, I think, for a lot of foods. Like, what is that? Can you reconstruct that texture when you were talking?
Yeah.
Sometimes you just, even though you haven't had it in a while, you can see something every now and then, and some feeling comes up or some thought comes up. Well, I want some type of wrap, or something like that. It could be something that was a pleasure point for you, but the fact that you could use a dehydrator and make something that's really healthy and still have that moment, I think that's amazing. And I think we can get on, like, at least for a lot of people, they may get that way, like, I just want to eat fruits, and there's nothing wrong with that either. Or I just want my salad. I don't want anything like that. And if you can do that, that's wonderful too. Like, wherever you are, though, kind of accept it and don't, beat yourself up. But if you can find ways, like to create those tastes and that moment where you're not going all the way back to, calling the delivery service and getting Taco Bell or whatever, right? Like, you're actually
Yeah.
doing a lot better. And even if you are, what's the best choice you can make there to keep it raw or whatever, or high raw? I think when we start confusing everything with like healthy and being kind to our body is the big thing, and raw food keeps that happening. So when we shift it around like that, like, I have to be raw because it's the way I feel best, instead of like just, up like a punishment. Some people can get to a point, I feel like, and we don't want to ever feel that way. And that's how we keep this going long term, I think, because we love the food just like we love ourselves.
100%. And also, I want to just speak on people who are high raw. So if people, don't think Barbies, but I know some people have like squash, and they have quinoa, and they have tofu, and they have beans. If you have been doing that for years or an extended period, is your brain is used to this combination. What happens, and anyone here, tell me what happens with you, is when you add back a food, like when I added back salt, or when I added back nuts, when I added in cacao, when I've added anything back in, we tend to just want a ton of it. Like, I'm an addictive
Yeah.
personality, but I don't even think it's an addictive trait. I feel like you haven't lit up these receptors in your brain which have dopamine attached, right? And all of a sudden you do, it's like freaking Christmas, right? So, but my suggestion is let it burn out. Don't beat yourself up, because eventually, just like when you would have had new foods or things when you're younger, you get really love it because it's all new and exciting, but eventually it's have a bit here, won't have it for ages. But so it's one of those things where if you're doing a high raw lifestyle, you're fine, right? It's when you haven't had anything cooked and someone wants something that's comforting, just a one night off. It's very hard to just
To go back.
to have the one thing, because you've lit up Christmas and you just keep, wanting Christmas. If it's something you want to incorporate again, that's fine. You will plateau out. But a lot of us want just sometimes a not even a cheap meal. These meals are density rich with nutrients. It's just about having what will not set you back mentally and emotionally. So
I completely agree.
I'm just looking at all these beautiful comments from you guys.
Thank you, everyone.
And the pasta one I
Laurel,
wanted to bring up.
Michelle,
Yeah, I wanted
Tessa.
to bring up. So, cooked foods are healthy. For me, the hardest is pasta. Now, kelp noodles, yeah, you can use kelp noodles, but I actually don't like, and maybe we get to this stage, but I actually, even when you can freeze some veggies and make them softer, like cooked food, you could probably do that with zucchini noodles to make them more like pasta texture, even softer. I love the texture of structure. Like, I love it. Like, I would prefer raw zucchini noodles even over kelp noodles. I just don't want pasta. But I know we're all at different stages, and that might be something. So freezing the veggies can make them taste in your food. Cooked, also freezing the zucchini noodles. But happy to share. I don't know what it's like for you, JJ. I I love the structured food. When I see cooked foods, I actually feel a bit sad. I'm like, pop back into like your form.
It's like, I feel like sometimes I'll be okay with it, but like after like having a bite of it or two, like sometimes I know that feeling. It's almost like you crave the freshness over that type of texture. It almost feels like it's, but I think like maybe the noodles or the spiralizer is the closest I get to it. And depending if you're high raw or not, if you're looking for like the grain, maybe like sprouting, like lent. I mean, not, you could do quinoa if you're not completely raw, but like, what about like sprouts? Sometimes they give me like the mung bean sprouts. I get them like from the store. I haven't grown my own in a while, but when I put them, they actually give me like a little bit of a texture of like a noodle. But if you're looking for like straight pasta, I may not have the best, because I don't use a dehydrator. So I'm sure there's probably a better way that you could do it, but I just don't have the answer to that.
Yeah, you can put them in the dehydrator, the noodles, and they do go floppier. Not for very long either, just like an hour with the sauce. If that's something you want to do, I personally I'm not like a huge fan of that. But I did want to bring up, just because we're going to have to wind this up, because I'm about to do the cacao party with Marabella for the full moon.
Yes, I'll be there.
So I've been craving matcha, but kind of scared of the caffeine. Skye, if you go without matcha, do you get headaches? So this is what I did when I reintroduced matcha and cacao. I will have a cacao today. I actually haven't had cacao at the last 3 parties. I'm not a big cacao person. The reason being is most of the time when I have cacao, the negatives outweigh the positives for me. So having one, my body will flush it through. But if I continue to have it, my body does not. There's more negatives than positives. With matcha, I have consistent focus throughout the day. I don't have a crash. I feel like getting my memory back for me seems to work well with the estrogen replacement that I have back in, because I have had a hysterectomy with a stimulant. And I think it's because I was on stimulants for so many years when I had my memory. And I don't know, I just feel better. I don't hold as much fluid. I don't have many negative effects. Sometimes I tend not to overdo it. So it's just one matcha, which is in the morning, sometimes 2. If I was to have 3 or 4, yes, I would definitely have headache. I kind of wake up and go, oh, I'll just have juice. But then when I have my matcha, I just notice that my day, I seem to be more of myself right now. That may change. I'm constantly changing. But if you first add matcha in, I do feel like, or anything like that into a system, is go easy, because your body will have an up and a down, and maybe see over time when you have them how you feel. But that's why I'm very, like, actually prefer carob over cacao. It's not the same for me as matcha, and I always just weigh up how something makes me feel. I actually feel like I've got a lot of lessons to learn from matcha, and that's how I like to see the food or anything like that as a medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't know. I always had to do my crazy pun whenever we talk about that. I don't know much about it. I've never had it. Oh, you couldn't get out without one. It had to be a joke in there somewhere.
yeah. Okay, guys, that was this week. Please message us if you have any topics you want us to talk on for next week. And I'll see you guys in like 5 minutes with the cacao for the full moon ceremony. Thanks, JJ.
Okay, I'll see you guys soon. And if you have a comment that we can answer, like she said, I will read them all. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Skye. See you,
Thanks,
everybody. Thanks for
JJ.
coming. Appreciate you.